Chicago, December 1969, 3:47 a.m. Hugh Hefner stands alone by the window of his State Street mansion, the city glowing beneath him like a living machine. In his hands, one photograph, fresh, still warm from the flash. Barbie Benton, 19, laughing in the arms of a young musician outside the Whisky a Go-Go. Not staged, not controlled, not his. His pipe shakes, not from cold, from collapse. For 15 years, Hefner sold the world a dream. Love without ownership, freedom without pain. He built an empire on the idea that no one truly belonged to anyone. But in this moment, staring at proof that Barbie never belonged to him at all, the fantasy fractures. Because the woman he believed he was sharing with the world has chosen someone else. And in the next 47 minutes, Hefner will make a decision so radical it will rewrite the rules of his kingdom, changing not only his future, but the fate of every woman who will ever walk through the gates of Playboy. This is not a story about desire. It is a story about control. And the night the illusion finally broke. Let us know where you're watching from. And we hope you enjoy the story. March 15th, 1960. Chicago was still shaking off winter, and State Street smelled of wet stone, cigar smoke, and expensive cologne. Inside the brownstone that would soon be called the Mansion, Hugh Hefner stood at the end of a long glass table and read from a single page of typed rules. There were 15 people in the room: assistants, secretaries, 2 early playmates, 1 nervous accountant. No music, no laughter, just the low hum of the projector in the next room and the sound of his voice, calm, exact, almost gentle. Rule 1. No one stays more than 3 nights per week. Rule 2. No personal mail delivered directly. Everything routed through staff. Rule 3. No unscheduled access to his bedroom. Rule 4. No names spoken during parties. He called it a rotating schedule. Not for logistics, he said it was for energy management. But the truth was simpler. If no one stayed long enough, no one could belong. And if no one belonged, he remained unreachable. That morning, after the meeting, he wrote in his leather-bound notebook, "Closeness creates entitlement. Distance preserves authority." Every conversation was logged. Every mood shift was noted. He studied people the way other men studied markets. Who smiled longer? Who needed approval? Who confused attention for love? His world looked indulgent from the outside, but inside it ran like a laboratory. The mansion itself felt like a stage set built for control. Mirrored walls reflected endless versions of the same room. Hidden intercoms in the hallways. One-way glass in the screening room, where Hefner could watch without being seen. At night, the air thickened with perfume, tobacco, and something colder. An unspoken understanding that everything here was temporary. By 1963, the illusion slipped. Her name was Carrie Zane, 24. Sharp smile. Confident voice. She stayed 4 months, long enough to forget she was replaceable. Long enough to tell a reporter she was the First Lady of Playboy. Hefner never confronted her. He erased her. For 6 weeks, he walked past her without eye contact. Never spoke her name. Never acknowledged her presence. Parties continued. Meetings continued. But she became invisible in a house built on being seen. When she finally left, she was hollow. 2 months later, she was hospitalized. He recorded only one line. Non-response is the most effective correction. By 1966, pressure crept in from outside. A rival magazine. Falling subscriptions. Hefner worked 20-hour days, fueled by dexedrine. His hands trembled when he tried to light a cigarette. His doctor warned him in September 1967, 3 more months like this, and your heart won't survive. At 4 in the morning, he sat alone in his private cinema, replaying old party footage, watching himself laugh, surrounded by people, searching for something real in a room full of performers. There was nothing, not one face that felt permanent. His friends were employees. His lovers were scheduled. His ex-wife despised him. The empire glittered. The man at its center was empty. He wrote one sentence before dawn. I built a world where no one can reach me. And now there is no one left who wants to. And in July 1968, the system met its first true anomaly. July 28, 1968. Studio lights burned hot on Sunset Boulevard, flattening faces, erasing flaws, turning people into surfaces. Playboy After Dark ran like a well-oiled machine. Cigarettes, cocktails, laughter on cue. Hugh Hefner moved through it all in silk pajamas, nodding, directing, never surprised. Then he noticed the girl who broke the rhythm. She stood near the edge of the set, not watching him, not watching the cameras. When an assistant handed her a drink, she shook her head and said, quietly but firmly, I'm here to work, not to impress. No smile, no apology. Her name on the call sheet was Barbie Novak, 18 years and 7 months old. Extra, replaceable. Hefner felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. Not desire, curiosity. In a room where everyone performed for him, she hadn't. After the taping wrapped, he invited her for coffee. A reflex. She declined, said she had an exam at UCLA in the morning, said it plainly, as if his invitation carried no special weight. His palms were damp. That hadn't happened in years. Instead of withdrawing, he improvised. Offered her a paid position, assistant on future shoots. $800 a month. No conditions. Just work. The words surprised even him. She hesitated, then nodded. As long as it's really just a job. He lied easily. Of course. August turned into a quiet pursuit. Hefner began appearing near UCLA, never announced, never obvious. Lunch spots. Walkways, always accidental. He had never chased anyone like this. Control had always come from stillness. Now he moved. In September, she agreed to dinner, but only with rules. She would not pose, would not live in the mansion, would not belong to his world. She wanted something ordinary. He agreed. He told himself it was strategy, that she would soften, that they always did. By October, she was sleeping in his bedroom, alone with him, no schedule, no rotation. A privilege no one else had held. And still, she talked about graduating, about teaching, about a future that didn't include him. In November, he tested her, offered $50,000 for a cover shoot, enough to change her life. She said no. If you love me, she said, calm, unafraid, you don't need my body in your magazine. That night, Hefner didn't sleep. He wrote until sunrise, admitting something he had avoided for 15 years. He was no longer managing desire. He was inside it. He canceled parties, cleared rooms, let staff whisper, let the system bend. For the first time, the rules didn't feel like protection. They felt like a lie. December arrived quietly, without ceremony, as if the mansion itself sensed something had shifted and chose not to announce it. Barbie moved in just before Christmas, but not the way women usually did. She took a guest room at the far end of the hallway. No mirrored ceiling, no intercom, a door that locked from the inside. She kept her books stacked by the window and left early in the mornings for UCLA, hair still damp, wearing sweaters that didn't belong in photographs. Hefner told himself this was freedom. that this was what he had preached for years. Yet every rule he had built suddenly felt fragile. On January 18, 1969, he introduced her to his children. Lunch was formal, stiff, too quiet. 13-year-old Christy didn't wait long. She pushed her plate away and stood up. "You're younger than my babysitter," she said, her voice sharp and shaking. "This is disgusting." The room froze. Hefner opened his mouth, ready to manage the moment, but Barbie spoke first. "You're right," she said. "It is strange, and you're allowed to hate it." Christy stared at her, disarmed. No defense, no manipulation, just truth. Hefner felt something crack, not loudly, but deep. By spring, the mansion had become a golden cage. Paparazzi lingered near campus. Professors looked at Barbie differently. Classmates whispered. She was 19 and already reduced to a footnote in someone else's story. In April, she met Michael Cullen in the UCLA library. 22, music student. He asked if the seat across from her was taken. He didn't know her name, didn't know who she lived with, didn't care. When he invited her to hear his band play, she didn't tell Hefner. It was the first secret she kept. The venue was small. The sound was rough. She cried anyway, not from the music, but from relief. For 3 hours, she wasn't an icon, a girlfriend, a symbol, just a girl in the dark. Hefner noticed the change by summer. Missed calls, shorter visits, conversations that stayed on the surface. His stomach knotted with a feeling he had always avoided naming. In October, he crossed a line he had mocked for years. He hired a private detective. The photos arrived on November 25th. Barbie and Michael at a cafe, at a movie theater, leaning close, laughing. Her face open in a way he hadn't seen in months. That night, he swallowed Dexedrine and didn't sleep. Wrote in his journal, "I taught them to be free. Now I'm terrified of it." On December 1st, Barbie said she was visiting her parents. Hefner nodded, already knowing the truth. The detective had confirmed the cabin near Lake Arrowhead. She returned early on December 3rd. At 11:30 p.m., she stepped into his dark bedroom and saw the photographs spread across the table. 47 seconds passed without a word. Then she spoke softly. "You always said people should be free to love who they want," she said. "Or does that only apply when you're not the one being left?" Hefner stood and walked to the window. His reflection stared back at him. Older, thinner, exposed. And for the first time since the system was built, he didn't know which rule to enforce, or whether any of them still mattered. The rain started just before midnight, thin at first, then heavier, tapping against the windows like an impatient knock that never came inside. At 11:47 p.m., Hugh Hefner finally spoke. "You're right," he said, voice low, uneven. "I'm a hypocrite." He didn't turn from the window. "I built everything on freedom, and now I want you to belong to me. And the worst part?" A pause. "I'm willing to change the rules. Only for you." Barbie had prepared for anger, for dismissal, for the quiet cruelty she had seen before. This was worse. This was surrender. "See him," he added. "I won't stop you. Just don't leave." The words landed wrong. Not relief, not victory. Pity. Barbie's breath broke. She covered her face, crying not because she was trapped, but because he was. "This isn't freedom," she said. "It's mercy, and I don't want it." Still, she stayed. In December, they tried honesty like an experiment neither believed in. On the 8th, she asked him to tell her everything. All of it. He sat across from her and listed names. 17 women, calmly, like inventory. She listened without interruption. When he finished, she nodded. "Then we're equal," she said. I'm seeing Michael. Hefner agreed. He smiled. That night, alone, he wrote, I have created hell by honoring my own philosophy. She split her time, 3 nights in the mansion, the rest in a UCLA dorm. When she was present, he canceled parties, locked the pool house, dismissed models. When she wasn't, he filled the silence with excess, chasing numbness until dawn. In January, Michael learned who she really was. A gossip column, a photograph. He came to the mansion himself, standing small at the gate. Hefner took the call and went down personally. They spoke for 2 hours. No raised voices, no threats. I can give her a world, Hefner said at last. Michael answered, steady, but I can give her a life. Hefner let him inside. That was the moment staff began to understand the system was failing. By February, Barbie brought Michael to parties. Hefner allowed it, watched it, felt something close to admiration, and something worse. Loss. On March 20th, Michael proposed. No ring, just the question. Barbie asked for a week. That night, she told Hefner, he kept editing footage, hands shaking. Why haven't you answered? He asked. Because I love 2 men, she said, and it's tearing me apart. He cried without sound, eyes fixed on the screen, working through it like pain could be managed by focus. On March 27th, at 2:34 a.m., Barbie left. 1 bag, a note on the desk. No goodbye. 3 days later, Hefner gathered his executives. New rules, no exclusivity, no attachment, distance restored. He destroyed every photograph of her but one. In his journal, he wrote, Love proved my system works only when you don't believe in it. I won't make that mistake again. The king had capitulated, and in doing so, became colder than ever. April 1970 felt like exile. Barbie woke each morning in a studio apartment in West Hollywood where the walls were thin and the rent was cheap, $120 a month. The silence was different here. No intercom hum, no footsteps outside the door, just traffic, a rattling refrigerator, and Michael sleeping beside her, one arm heavy across her waist, like proof that this was real. 2 weeks in, a letter arrived. It wasn't threatening. No legal language. Just a check for $25,000 and a short note explaining what it was for. 18 months of work she'd never been paid for. Compensation. Closure. Barbie tore the check in half. Michael didn't understand. She tried to explain. Because he still needs to own the ending, she said. Even goodbye has to be on his terms. By summer, normal life revealed its own fractures. She worked as a waitress between classes. Money was tight. Michael grew quieter. Every mention of Playboy landed like a bruise. On August 3rd, at a small club, someone shouted from the crowd, "Play something for the Playmate!" Michael dropped his guitar and walked off stage. The band dissolved that night. Later, in the dark, he said what he had been holding back. I can't compete with a ghost. When people look at you, they still see him. She didn't argue. She couldn't. Fall split them cleanly apart. Michael left for San Francisco without saying goodbye, left a note instead. She finished her semester with honors and cried alone in her car more than she'd admit. Across town, the mansion turned mechanical. Hefner cycled through women without learning names. Dexedrine kept him upright. In October, he collapsed from exhaustion. Doctors warned him again. He listened just long enough to be discharged. On New Year's Eve, the party roared below while he sat alone upstairs. At 11:47 p.m., the answering machine clicked on. Hi, Hugh. It's Barbie. I know you won't pick up. I just wanted to say, Happy New Year. I spent the best 18 months of my life with you. And the worst, at the same time, he played it again and again, 47 times before dawn. In February 1971, they ran into each other at Dan Tana's. 3 minutes of polite conversation. He asked about school. She answered. Nothing more. She cried in the restroom for 20 minutes. He went home and called his psychiatrist drunk for the first time in months. When did I become this empty? Time passed. Careers restarted. Wounds scabbed. In August 1972, Barbie walked back into a Playboy office for the first time. She needed help. One role, one door opened. Hefner canceled his day. They talked for 4 hours about work, not memory. Why help me? She asked. Because you left on your feet, he said. I respect that. He made one call. The role was hers, on one condition, the name, Barbie Benton. When she left, he watched from the window, certain of one thing. She was back in his world. Not as a lover, as a player. September 1972 did not feel like a reunion. It felt like a negotiation. Barbie returned to the mansion without luggage. No drawer, no closet space. She arrived in her own car, left before sunrise, and kept her apartment in West Hollywood untouched. 2 or 3 nights a week. Never consecutive. Control had shifted, and both of them knew it. On September 12th, they watched The Godfather in the private cinema. No touching. No champagne. At 2 in the morning, she stood, kissed his cheek, and went home. Hefner didn't follow. Staff noticed. Bobby Arnstein confronted him the next day. You're letting her run this, she said. No, he replied. She's letting me stay. By winter, the public image caught up. Barbie agreed to a photo shoot. Artistic, restrained, every frame approved by her. When the July 1973 issue sold out in 48 hours, she stared at the cover and cried. Not from pride, from clarity. She had chosen the cage knowingly. You won, she told him. You did, he answered. You chose this. Money meant nothing to her. She donated the entire fee and never mentioned it again. Work followed. Television roles, introductions. Doors opened quietly, always with his shadow behind her. In March 1973, a young director offered her a part without his involvement. She didn't tell Hefner. When he found out, he didn't rage. Why didn't you say something? Because I wanted one thing that was only mine. She turned the role down anyway. There was no way to win clean. By late 1973, he asked her to move into the new Mansion West. Not as a playmate, but as a partner. She agreed under conditions. Separate bedroom, salary, freedom to leave. Everything signed, notarized, formalized. Love, reduced to a contract. On paper, it worked. In March 1974, she found out she was pregnant. She waited a week before telling him. When she did, he was honest. I can't start over at 50, he said, but this has to be your choice. She had the abortion in April. He waited in the car, held her hand afterward, said nothing. Something never came back. They lived together after that like colleagues, shared dinners, separate nights. In November, she overheard him call her an investment during a business conversation. That night, she packed quietly and left through the back gate. The note she left was signed Barbara. Hefner didn't chase her. He gathered the staff the next morning. Her name was never spoken again. January 1975 began without drama. No headlines, no statements. Just distance settling into place. Barbie rented a small apartment in Westwood and finished her final year at UCLA. She declined every offer that traced back to his influence. When a letter arrived from Playboy's attorneys, she expected conditions. Instead, there was a check, $250,000, and a note in his handwriting. Payment for time. For years, that couldn't be returned. She didn't spend it. Put it away, untouched. That's not his money, she told a friend. It's the cost of knowing what he did. The mansion moved on as if nothing had happened. New faces, new schedules, old excess. Hefner went back to stimulants, longer nights, louder parties. In March, Bobby Arnstein was arrested. In January, she was dead. Another woman from the inner circle gone. Another pattern impossible to ignore. For the first time, Hefner asked himself a question he had spent decades avoiding. How many people had passed through his world worse than they entered? They ran into each other by chance that summer at the Chateau Marmont. No planning, no warning. She looked lighter. He looked older. "You seem happy," he said. "I'm learning," she answered. "And you?" "I stopped trying." They embraced once, brief, final. By fall, their lives diverged completely. Barbie chose stability, marriage, children, a career built slowly, without spectacle. Hefner chose continuity, younger women, tighter rules, contracts, curfews, emotion removed from the equation, love converted into management. Years passed. They spoke again in the 2000s as friends. No bitterness, no rewriting, just acknowledgement that whatever they had been, it could not survive daylight. In 2017, Hugh Hefner died at 91. Barbie attended the private farewell, quiet, unseen. In a side room, she found an envelope with her name. Inside, a confession he had never voiced aloud. An admission that loving her had broken his system. That freedom without distance was impossible for him. That the years after her were full, but hollow. She read it once, folded it carefully. At the grave, she placed a single photograph. Not of them. Of herself, young, laughing, unaware. Proof that he had remembered the version of her that didn't belong to him. After the service, an attorney handed her one last document. A deed. A small cottage in Napa Valley, purchased decades earlier. Never used. Her husband asked what it was. "A place that only existed as an idea," she said, "and should stay that way." That night, she didn't cry. Some stories don't end with reconciliation. They end with clarity. He believed he could build a life without consequences. She believed love could change a system. They were both wrong, and both honest enough, in the end, to admit it.